What up, everybody? It is Wednesday night. It is ship chasing. We got Pat Carrain, who's been wrestling with his dog. What is it? He doesn't want to go to sleep, or?
No, it's like, so last week I was really nervous that my internet would cut out because he had chewed through like hours before the Ethernet cable.
Oh, God.
And then I haven't streamed since then. So I was like, oh, crap, I need to get this Ethernet reset up with the new wire that came.
Yeah.
So it's like just strung kind of like directly. Like I haven't bothered to like put it underneath and kind of hide it from him.
Yeah.
So of course I set it down. Brittany has him in the other room, so it's all good. And then as soon as I plug it into my computer, I look over and somehow he's run back in the room and is chewing on it again. So I thought, immediately I was going to be out of the internet for the stream. So I saw Cat Carrain flashing before my eyes.
Dog, wind fetch. Good morning. I said good morning. Geez. Good evening, Willis. Good evening. Ben Gretsch, how you doing?
Good. I'm just realizing in my background that's a giant dinosaur. I got a book over there. My kids have made my office a play area in the off season, so I've had some random things going on behind me.
Oh, we do have Phil in the YouTube chat utilizing the new ship chasing emotes here. We do have the Murphy emote, which the way the VIP like YouTube program works is like the more members, the more emojis they allow you to unlock. I think we only have 4 or 5 we're eligible right now. But Murphy made the cut. So Pat,
I'll tell him. He'll be psyched.
You have to let him know. I mean, he earned it. I mean,
so happy.
He's only been a part of the ship chasing universe for like 2.5 weeks and is already just a total star.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see Clay's dog? Club Top Shot. Clay runs our social media guy. His puppy looks almost identical to yours.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, you guys should have puppy dates. And
I saw he was on the Ja Rule stream, but I only caught I caught most of the Laden thinks of that. I need to go back and catch the rest.
Nice. Yeah. That was a fun time.
I got to go watch that whole thing too. It's so long, but I watched parts of it. I definitely saw where he guessed 160,000
Fruit Loops.
Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah. I also love like what a good sport about it he was. He wasn't embarrassed awesome. And he just like had so much fun with it.
He could have taken the 0 off. He could have just been like 16.
Yeah. He was like, oh no. Yeah, it was the funnest part for me was just him going from like realizing, oh, I realize what this is. I'm gonna like get champagne and light a blunt, and I was just like, okay, because he was on his phone. He's like, I'm gonna do a 10-minute interview or 15-minute interview. Right. And they get out of here. He's like, no, we're gonna have a party.
It was fun because I went out to dinner. I just kind of lived a normal life for a night, and then I came home and just like put the YouTube on RTV, like it was a show. Yeah. And Brittany, I hadn't told her about this. I was just like, here, let's just watch Pete interview Ja Rule.
I apologize, Brittany, that that was your equivalent of Netflix and chill was watching one of my streams. I can't even imagine if I tried that on a Friday night, trying to throw on a stream and Lauren's like, what the hell? Can we please just go back to watching Ted Lasso?
Yeah. You were interviewing Ja Rule. Like it did capture her attention for a little bit.
That's true. I am enjoying. I was late to the party on Ted Lasso.
Good.
Have you seen it, Pat?
Yeah.
So my thought was this: like it hits its stride like episode 4 or 5, because like the first one, I feel like tonally it was all over the place. It was like, I can't tell if it wants to be like cartoonish and character. And then it started hitting the beats and I was like, oh wow, now I get why all this shit. Cause I was skeptical from the hype early, but then halfway through I was like, all right.
That's how I felt too. And that ends really quick. It's only 8 episodes, right? And you're like, damn, well, I'm excited for the next season. Like this will be good.
Which I think is a normal thing. You see that so many times, like with The Office and Parks and Rec, it takes them a little bit to know how to write for the characters.
Another one that was like that, where throughout this pandemic, we never were a big Marvel Cinematic Universe group, me and my wife, but my wife got into it and she really wanted to watch WandaVision. It was a lot like that. I don't know if you guys saw that yet, but the first few episodes are like, this isn't what I thought this was. And then it definitely picks up and then it's done. And she was like so mad. She's like, I want another episode. I want more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something to like what we're looking for in the pandemic has changed a little bit. Like I do think that Ted Lasso is sort of like perfectly pitched to what feels good to watch right now. You know what I mean? Like it's like so upbeat. It's like comically upbeat. It knows that it's comically upbeat, and that's like part of the charm. But I think it's just kind of hitting.
Yeah, Sudeikis is pretty good at that too. Sudeikis is
perfect at it.
He's great at it.
Yeah. And you always, it's a tight, like, it is very hard to do like really stupid characters well. You know, like it is a bit of a tightrope walk, but they get there with him. Like once they start kind of fleshing out his story with his home life, and his kind of relationship with his, wife and kids and stuff, then like once you have the emotional stakes, then you're more willing to put up with it. And then he has the scene. I just watched the scene in the bar, where he slow rolls the guy on playing darts and stuff. And you're
that's okay.
The best. He actually is,
because he's not stupid.
No.
He's willing to let other people think he's stupid.
Yeah. And so once they kind of started to reveal that side, I got way more on board with it.
But he is aggressively ignorant about the game of soccer.
Yeah.
Do a little more research, man.
Yeah. There have been some really good scenes so far. Anyways, this won't become Ted Lasso chasing. But what do we got? We got pro day stuff. Pat, you're starting to get in the mix here with the prospects. I was actually hounding you today for your rookie ranks. Ben,
it turns out I'm doing a rookie mock draft, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did get invited to do a rookie mock draft with the fantasy footballers. I said yes. Also, I have a lot of work to do. So I will be on the clock some point tomorrow, Pat, and hitting you up.
All right. So I will be on the clock at some point tomorrow.
Yeah. Ben, have you done any mock drafts, anything with prospects yet?
I haven't done any mock drafts. No. I mean, I have a draft in like 10 days. It's before the actual draft, and I have the 102. And so I've done some preliminary planning and trying to figure out what I might do there. It's kind of a rebuild, or it's definitely a rebuild. Do
you want to talk through that? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I have the 102. It's tight end premium. It's not super flex. I was asking you your thoughts on it because I haven't really dug in a ton to all the profiles. I think the two guys that especially in tight end premium, that I'm in love with in this class are Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts. And I was wondering your thoughts on whether you take Pitts at 102, how much the gap is, because the guy who has 101 has talked to me about potentially moving. And I do really like Chase and value him more, but there is obviously a premium you're going to have to pay to move up from 102 to 101. And he has told me he'll take Chase at 101, but he doesn't mind moving back, I think, because he likes Pitts as well. So anyway, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to stay at 102 and take, if it's worth taking Pitts there. I could also use a trade back. It's a team that was the first 3 years of this dynasty, it was a semifinals or better roster, and then it kind of aged out. And so last year was the first year I missed the playoffs, I think, and I kind of tanked it. And now I'm, at the 102. So trying to figure out how to reinfuse some talent. Still have some good players on the roster, but trying to figure out how to reinfuse some talent.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting spot. Tight end premium, but not super flex, which isn't. I guess that's kind of all FFPC leagues, or most of them. But yeah, drafting ahead of the draft, right? Because if you have post draft, it's like, well, one of Harris or Etienne or Williams, or maybe two of those guys are probably going to be in the top 2 picks. But with the tight end premium, I think I would also take Pitts at 102. But I would also be trying to trade up to the 101. So I think Chase is just so locked in. Like, he both has a very high ceiling and a very high floor. So,
but doesn't Pitts?
I don't think Pitts does have a high floor.
Okay.
Because no tight end prospects have a high floor.
Yeah, that's true. I thought the same thing about OJ Howard. He's the last guy I was this sure about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like lamenting your draft being before the NFL draft, because Jamar Chase and those kind of like high pedigree wide receivers are the ones that inevitably always get bumped down in favor of the best running back landing spot. And so it's like you can just get the guy falling into your lap, but ahead of time, everyone ends up coveting those guys because they look the best on paper before people match up the
exactly. Slot. It's exactly how this rookie draft has played out in the past few years. Like a couple of years ago, I know N'Keal Harry went 101.
Yeah.
And that was, I had Antonio Brown that offseason. That's when I started my rebuild, and I traded him straight up after the other guy took Harry 101. I traded him straight up, and I was like pumped. I mean, not pumped, but like this was the offseason that Brown signed with the Raiders, and he like went off the rails. And so it was like, okay, I got out at the right time. I didn't think that was going to happen, but and then Harry has done nothing. But it's been that.
You might rather have Brown at this point.
Right.
It's been for Harry.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's been that. It's been
You're probably right. God.
Yeah, it's been rough.
The elite receivers have gone first, and then I've seen huge shifts basically. Last year, I think I'm looking at it now. Last year it was Taylor, Swift, and Dobbins, and then Judy, Lamb went 4-5. The year before would have been Harry, I think, right? 2019.
So I'm surprised Lamb didn't go higher.
The year before it was Harry, Metcalf, AJ Brown went third, which later he was like 10th and 12th because people freaked out. Hakeem Butler, Kelvin Harmon was the top 5.
Wow.
And then Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery and Miles
Kelvin
Sanders.
Harmon 105 is rough.
It's rough in hindsight. Dude, I took Leonte Carew 4th overall in this draft a few years back.
Wow, you guys are definitely way more wide receiver focused because, I mean, Josh Jacobs would not go behind Kelvin Harmon and hardly any draft.
Then he went in the first round of the NFL draft. I don't think everyone expected him necessarily to go in the first round. It was a little bit.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, I keep forgetting it's before the draft.
Yeah. He dropped in first round to the Raiders, and it was clear he was going to have, a workload role. And that's what I mean, all of a sudden he was number 1, and Montgomery and Miles Sanders were 2 and 3. Those guys went outside the top 5 in mine.
Yeah.
I'm going back to 2017 all the way because there's –
I might trade down in that type of league then because go ahead.
This is the one where Mike Williams went 101. Then it goes Dalvin Cook, Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, 2, 3, 4. So obviously after the draft, those guys went ahead of Williams in most drafts. And in hindsight, taking Mike Williams 101, that's tough.
Where'd Juju go in that draft?
9. Corey Davis went 5. A lot of people had Corey Davis even higher than Mike Williams that year.
Yep.
Pat, I have one for you here. So I didn't do the auction version, but I was in the league, the Leone startup ones that you guys did. So I did the snake draft version of it before. So it's same settings as yours. But Leone offered me just straight up his 109 this year for, or my 109 for his J.K. Dobbins. What's your thoughts on that trade?
I'd rather have the 109. It's super flex, tight end premium. The 109 is a really sweet pick this year. I think goes up until about the 110 in super flex because you've got 5 quarterbacks potentially who you're going to want in those top 9 picks. Mac Jones maybe a little bit less so, but who knows? He might go number 3 overall to San Francisco. That'd be pretty enticing. But there's definitely 4. I mean, Wilson, Fields, Lance, and obviously Lawrence all have huge ceilings. And so then you have the top 3 running backs are all going to be very, very valuable, I think. One of them could land in a bad spot, let's say, but that gets you to 7. And then you've got Chase, you've got Bateman, you've got Waddle, Devonta Smith, obviously. So there's lots of really strong prospects in those early picks. And
I mean, watching, I still, I guess, have a little excitement about J.K. Dobbins, but just watching how he was used down there, and it doesn't seem like a lot would change for him to where he'd get used a ton in the passing game and really unlock his value.
That's my concern with him. Yeah, I mean, again, this is kind of a constant refrain with me with running backs in Dynasty, but when you're drafting these young running backs, a lot of the ceiling is priced in. And so you have to be really willing to move off these guys if you start to see some red flags specifically on their ceiling, not them as players necessarily, and not like them as having like quality starting roles. It's more like, is this guy ever going to be an elite asset? And if they're not, then they're by definition overpriced, because you can get like pretty solid running back production for way cheaper than J.K. Dobbins is going to cost. So I'm worried about J.K. Dobbins' ceiling in that offense, not catching a ton of passes, maybe not having a workhorse role, maybe always kind of having another guy being mixed in, having maybe two other guys potentially getting mixed in. J.K. Dobbins, I think, is a really good player, but that's, we need more than that at running back.
Yeah. Are you on that same wavelength, Ben?
I think it was a great point. I hadn't really thought through J.K. Dobbins as deeply as Pat clearly has, but as he made that point, I was just like, yeah, I agree with all of this. I mean, we talked about it a little last week. I value the team situation so much. I value team high value touches. Running quarterbacks don't throw to their running backs. Lamar Jackson hasn't. And the data shows that. We know why. Like, a lot of running back targets are after you're not finding someone downfield, you're finding your outlet. And these guys don't do that. They scramble. And Jackson is the quintessential scrambling quarterback. He's an amazing runner. And that's a great trait. But, people talk about his completion percentage and stuff. Well, look at his ADOT. Look at the fact that he doesn't make these easy completions. Drew Brees completes 70% of his passes because the guy never moves out of the pocket. He's really good at throwing to his outlet running backs. Like, it's as simple as that. How many easy completions is the guy getting? Those have like an 80% catch rate. Okay, well, then he's going to have a higher completion percentage. Jackson doesn't throw those passes. He runs, and he averages like 5-6 yards a carry, so that's great too. I mean, he's still a good football player. Just because he doesn't have the completion percentage you want doesn't necessarily mean he's an inaccurate passer or anything. But all of that is really bad for the running backs on that team. And to Pat's point, they've always used a committee. Harbaugh likes to keep guys fresh. I think it's smart. I think the Ravens are smart for an NFL team. He'll be a good asset for their team, but not for fantasy. The ceiling, especially, like Pat's saying.
Yeah.
He's someone you're going to want to start. Like, he's someone that'll be, pretty solid, probably mid-round, like fourth round, fourth round draft pick or whatever. But that's not what we're looking for his price in Dynasty. So
yeah.
Right. So, Pat, we had some of the we got the pro day times trickling in. I think it was it last week we were doing the Rondale Moore highlights, and then but we've had some more. I believe Kyle Pitts' was today, right?
Kyle Pitts was today.
Yeah,
and he ran a 4.4440 at 245 pounds.
Yeah,
it's absurd.
I kind of want to. Sam makes a good counterpoint about Mark Ingram. And this is interesting, right? Like, he had a top 10 season, but he caught 5 touchdowns on like 20 receptions. It was a ridiculously unsustainable receiving TD rate, and still was a low-end top 10 running back. And we talk about how, you have to stay essentially healthy and be in a full-time role and get a certain amount of touches, and you can pretty much get there, especially if you have the touchdowns. He was not elite. That's not a ceiling. Like, it's really tricky with running backs. A top 10 benchmark for me is not a ceiling. Like, outside the top 5 is not really a ceiling.
And the other kind of thing too is when Ingram did that, I believe it was just like a two-headed monster, right, with Gus Edwards. And then this year they had kind of the three-way where it was those two and Dobbins. So, I mean, that third running back changes, fantasy potential for these backfields a ton.
The other thing is that he had like 16 points per game in 2018 when he had that big season, right? Or 2019. So he had 16 points per game. That's
15 TDs in 15 games. He scored a touchdown every game. You can't bank on that for anybody. Right.
Right. So you can replace that production. I mean, frankly, you can find the Mark Ingram from that year who, Mark Ingram was not costing you an arm and a leg in Dynasty when he put up that season. So you can go find a guy like you can find, Chris Carson if they don't bring anyone else in. You can find a kind of a veteran that's not that sexy who can get you, 13 to 15 points per game. If he hits 16 plus, that's awesome. But those guys are going to cost you way, way, way cheaper than what Dobbins is going to cost you. Yet Dobbins' production is probably going to be pretty similar.
Right.
Yeah. So would Dobbins be one of those? I mean, it's obviously what Leone's trying to do, and I would assume would be a quintessential Sean type of move where he still has enough value buoyed by his age and status and like showing some flashes, but getting out from under him now that we kind of really see what that trajectory most likely looks like in this offense.
Yeah, he's a sell for me. And Dobbins is also, I think, one of the reasons why I like drafting rookies in the first place, because I now kind of get a better sense of what his future is going to be in the NFL. Like, at least I feel more confident about projecting it out. And yet his value, if anything, has probably gone up a little bit from where he was last year.
Yeah.
So I feel less good about him, but I get out at a profit. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And this type of dynamic doesn't happen every time at rookie, of course. We do have our N'Keal Harrys. You do have total busts that blow up in your face. But for the most part, even if you're exiting at a profit.
Well, even your worst case scenario, N'Keal Harry was whole. It's now after 2 seasons that it started to bottom out. You still had sell windows even after 1 year. Myself included.
I tried. Harry bottomed out pretty bad after 1 year. He was terrible.
Well, you want to know why I say you had opportunities? Because I was the one buying him.
I drafted Harry in the auction league. I forget exactly how much I paid. It wasn't a ton, but yeah, there were buyers.
Well, but for a guy who went 101 the year before, he was suddenly like a single-digit auction. You know, he did lose a lot of it. He's the guy that when you make that point, it's always a really good point. They don't lose their value. He's the guy that I would say, unless you're N'Keal Harry, is sort of he's like the one dude.
Well, the irony is it was after his bad rookie season or towards the tail end. It was this is like all these stories and people colliding. So Kevin, your Omnifantasy bro, we did a trade in that fake goods league he used to be in where I shipped him Mark Ingram in this season that Sam was talking about for N'Keal Harry. I was the rebuilder. He was the contender. And, I was doing, jumping jacks. Sean told me like what a slam dunk, this move was. And then N'Keal Harry did N'Keal Harry things.
Yeah.
It felt good at the time though. Dumping the, the old veteran, running back that doesn't catch passes for the, the 103 pick that checks all the boxes, but he didn't check all the boxes.
If Jamar Chase falls in the draft and the Patriots trade up for him, I'm out.
You're out. The kiss.
I'm out on Chase.
That would be so brutal. It's hard to envision. Like, can you think of one player, one position that would be exciting for the Patriots? I mean, maybe they like go up and get a quarterback. Like, I don't know. I can't think of what would be exciting.
If they draft Kyle Pitts, I'm also going to be furious.
It's the same point with the Ravens, and I actually think there's at least a little bit of hope with the Patriots if they don't start Cam. If they start Cam, the offense is not usable. But maybe they wind up with a new quarterback, and then they actually throw a little bit, and then you could get some receiver potential.
Yeah. All right, pro days. Kyle Pitts making it move for you, Pat?
Yeah, I mean that's absurd. Like, it locks him into very, very high draft capital, and he's kind of confirmed that he is in fact a wide receiver who plays tight end. So he's got the NFL athleticism.
We got off on a tangent. I didn't get your answer, I don't think, on my 102 dilemma that I laid out. What would you do?
I think my number one goal would be to try to move down. Because of what I just sort of laid out before, where the middle of like kind of the 108 to like 111 range, there's just a glut of guys I want. And you can't screw it up too bad even before the draft, I don't think. Now, this could look really bad in retrospect. It's always kind of crazy. But, like there's 4 really high upside quarterbacks. There's 2 wide receiver prospects that I really like. Then you get those 3 running backs that should land in pretty solid spots. So, if you get down to the 108, 109, you're in good shape there. And then I don't even love Devonta Smith as much as I guess. Sorry. You're right. So take those quarterbacks away. Yeah. But you also have Devonta Smith, who I think is probably a lock to go in the top 6 picks. So even if you don't love him, if you're into Rondale Moore, which I kind of like Rondale Moore, then I would be very comfortable going to the 107. I I also think that some people might prefer Waddle over Rashad Bateman pre-draft. So you could get down to even the 108 if you're feeling like you want to get a little risky. But that's where I'd be trying to move to like the 106 to 108 range.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that. I mean, it's good advice. I like the idea of trading down, but last year when I started this rebuild, I traded Eckler for actually it was the 201 and 202, but I did it when they were on the clock and the guy had back-to-back picks, and I got Visca, and I took Ruggs, who was the one that was falling. And so I don't really want to put myself in a position where now I'm taking like Waddle if he's the one who falls, because I didn't really like Ruggs and I don't really like Waddle. I don't want to wind up with a bunch of these dudes that I'm not really particularly high on, but I can't do anything with on my roster, because I also have N'Keal Harry still on this roster. I have these guys that are like, I'll probably try to move Ruggs if I can, but I don't think I can move Harry. I'm just going to probably hold him. Anyway, I kind of want to get a high-end player onto this roster. It does have a little bit of depth in some players, not a ton, but like I have Calvin Ridley, I have Juju. That's about it. No, I have a couple tight ends and things, but I don't know that I want to take that gamble and wind up with a prospect I don't like just to move back like 5 spots and probably not get a ton.
You'd have to get a decent amount, because moving off Pitts at the 102 and tight end premium is obviously he's a premium player, and his ceiling is absurd. He's like, if they use him like Evan Ingram or Jimmy Graham, like he could be such a monster, but he needs some things to break his way. Like I do think he's long-term a lot riskier than people realize. By the same token, he's a tight end, so people don't expect him to have a huge rookie year, and this team's not going to win this year. I kind of like the idea of him. Like it's got a lot of young guys that I need to see what happens with. It has some interesting pieces, like I said, Visca and these dudes, but it's probably a year out at least. I kind of like adding him and just seeing how his rookie year goes and seeing what happens. Because I don't know. I mean, I disagree, I think, with the concern about Pitts. I think he has a low floor because all tight ends have a low floor. I don't think he's a tight end. And I think you need a team to think that too.
Yeah. I said the last guy that I thought this about was OJ Howard. I still think OJ Howard would be way better if he wouldn't have had all these injuries. And maybe it's some like off-field stuff. It's like playing time stuff. I mean, that can happen with any prospect in any position. The point I'm trying to make, though, is like Pitts to me is in a different class than basically any tight end we've seen. Maybe Howard's there. Maybe there's a few, I think, that profile similarly where they look like just absolute can't misses from an athletic and from a production standpoint and a draft capital standpoint, all the pieces. I mean, you can go back to like Eric Ebron. He looked that way. He wasn't great, but he ended up being a productive player in the NFL later in his career, second team. But the point is, the sample on guys that are this good of a prospect, I think, is different. So I'm a little hesitant to be too like wary of the tight end thing.
It's not just though that the guys who we think are going to be awesome often aren't. I mean, I'm someone who took David Njoku really high. You know, like I was really into Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Like these guys aren't to the Kyle Pitts level, but they were pretty damn good prospects at tight end.
Production-wise, those guys weren't close, right?
Well, Pitts had basically 1 year where he was a monster. He wasn't, if you look at him at a wide receiver, you're basically like, he was a 1-year wonder. He didn't have the career numbers I would look for. You're judging him pretty harshly as a tight end using wide receiver, but he didn't have this like otherworldly production to where he truly looks like a kind of a wide receiver prospect that's elite. The thing with tight end too is, right, so the guys who become elite, Kittle did not look like a guy that would become an elite tight end.
Yep.
Right. Jimmy Graham comes out of nowhere. Darren Waller. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver who's on his second team. Like a lot of these guys who end up being elite tight ends,
Logan Thomas. Yeah. A lot of these.
Yeah. They're just not who we think. So
even tight end Kelce was what, 3rd round?
Yeah. And he had that microfracture.
Yeah.
Issue.
People thought he was injury prone for his first couple of years too, because he missed.
Yeah. Great point. So it's like both ways. The guys who we think are going to be elite don't always pan out. Now, Gronk was an awesome prospect, and he's been, like the best tight end ever. So there are your hits, but
But he was a 4th round pick, wasn't he?
I thought he was a 2nd round pick.
Who?
Gronk.
Maybe they both were 2nd round picks. Hernandez went ahead of him.
Gronk was 2nd, I think. Right?
Okay, they both were 2nd. Yeah. I'm sorry.
But anyway, like, and Mark Andrews, I don't know if you consider him an elite tight end. Maybe I'm on an island here, but he was a 2nd round pick, not like a super highly regarded tight end. It was the 2nd tight end taken by that team in the same draft.
I made all that up. Hernandez was the 4th round pick. Gronk was the 2nd round pick. Okay. Hernandez did not go ahead of him. That was the one thing that I thought I knew. Anyway,
I love Kyle Pitts. I think he's gonna be awesome, but he has a low floor.
Yeah, I think you got to trade back, Ben. I think you got to trade back.
I'm not trading back. There's no way.
Are you gonna trade up?
I didn't give that as an option. The option was, do I take Kyle Pitts at 102 or do I trade up to 101? I'm not trading back.
I had a similar situation last year where I was sitting on the clock and CeeDee Lamb had fallen to me, and I was very, very excited to take CeeDee. And I got an offer that was like moving back 4 spots, picking up the 2-1 and getting a future first or second, all to just move back 4 spots and turn that into Ayuk and Visca and the future pick. And it sucked to not have a share of CeeDee Lamb, but I'm like, I knew I needed the asset bucket.
See, I did the same thing, but one of those picks for me was Rager, so I kind of wish I'd taken Lamb.
My thing is, like, I don't think I've ever picked 102. Like, I don't ever pick high. That's not like that humble of a humble brag. But I don't like. I usually have a decent enough team that I don't full on, tank it. And I did that on this team last offseason. I traded a bunch of like prime players like Austin Eckler for picks, all so that I could have a top 3 pick in the draft. And now I actually have a chance to get an elite premium player, either Chase or Pitt. Like, I can move up to get Chase fairly easy, I think.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm going to get one of these guys on my team. I don't have any of those dudes. I don't have Lamb. I don't have any of those good prospects on my rosters.
It does stink when you are, because you have like multiple factors that just make that slot less appealing when you consider your team situation being a rebuilder and before the draft, because it also, you can generally get discounts on the like more longer term prospects. You would have the opportunity to probably get those guys at 4 or 5, but because it fits your team composition, you're just having to pull the trigger there because you don't want to risk moving back a couple slots to pick up an extra 3rd and then not get your guy. Right.
Right. In this draft, I don't have a 2nd. I moved it to get Juju last year to get younger. I have the 302, 303, 309, 402, 409. I have 5 picks in the 3rd and 4th round. I can take plenty of flyers, or I can try and package them and move up into the 2nd round again. Not really worried about or make other moves. Like in this league, you can usually trade back in because it's pre-NFL draft. There's usually people that are willing to kind of kick the can on these 3rd round picks and stuff. I'm not really worried about trying to move back in. It's getting to the premium picks that's kind of tough. Like, I actually think I might be able to, or might try to trade back into the 1st, into the 105 or the 107 or something.
Wow, yeah, I like that.
Circle back. We had what Sam was saying is Pitt's safer than other rookie tight ends because he's likely to be used in Evan Ingram type role.
That makes me feel like he is a little bit safer, but like Ben's talking about how confident we were in OJ Howard, and he was a great prospect. And then Bruce Arians decides he's just going to use him to block for an entire season. So he is going to be a tight end. He's probably going to be used like Jimmy Graham and Evan Ingram, where he's split out and is essentially playing big slot wide receiver. But there's some really weird NFL coaches, and the decisions don't always really line up with what should happen. Rational coaching is not a guarantee. So
it is really weird. It's really weird. And it is a position about utilization. I totally agree with you that some guys come out of nowhere, and it really depends on the offense. And, you're making good points. I've said this before, like a team wouldn't take a tight end that high unless they're going to make their offense work around him. But we just saw it with TJ Hawkinson. We saw it with Eric Ebron in Detroit before. We've seen it with, like, just because a team's willing to invest that type of draft capital doesn't mean they have a coach that actually utilizes that player as if they invested that type of draft capital in him, which is weird.
Yep.
This is like the only position where that seems to happen. If a running back goes top 10, he gets used, right? Like he gets used a lot to justify that pick. It doesn't happen at tight end.
Yeah. Let's see here. What other
like people have talked about the Falcons? Chris G just brought it up. I don't like that. I don't want him as the third option in his passing game. I don't want him as at a place that hasn't really had great tight ends. Austin Hooper was good after a few years as a possession guy. Not like there couldn't be two tight ends more different, I think, than Austin Hooper and Kyle Pitts. Pitts is a freak athlete at the position. Hooper is not. He runs like a pretty slow 40. He just runs curl routes, and he's like a dump off guy for Matt Ryan, or was when he was there. That's the only tight end they've ever really utilized. You can go all the way back to Tony Gonzalez, I guess, but that's not a spot that I want him to be.
I do like that fit because they have utilized the tight end, even though those tight ends weren't athletic. The quarterback play is solid. They could end up passing a bunch. The team's not going to be able to shut down a young Kyle Pitts, who's kind of coming into his own still as a tight end, and they utilize a slot wide receiver who stinks.
When you say they've utilized 10, are you referencing Arthur Smith? I wasn't thinking about that actually.
No, I just mean like Austin Hooper's had decent success. They were using Hayden Hurst, who I think is kind of a bum.
Were they?
So
what did he have last year?
He ran a lot of routes. So I think, if you give those routes to Kyle Pitts, and then also maybe you're getting some of the Russell Gage role to Kyle Pitts, I mean, that's pretty nice.
And Julio misses half the season every year.
Yeah, maybe they just put him out in the Julio role when Julio misses.
Here's some more. We'll make it the Kyle Pitts show. What team in the top half of the draft would make you like Pitts less? I feel like there's a few, right?
I'm kind of a little bit more sold on the I'm going to pull up draft order, but I'm a little bit more sold on Falcons, especially because you guys make a good point on Julio. He's old. If he misses time, Pitts would have to step up.
While Ben pulls up the draft order, this is slander. Pitt seems too hyped. Matt Jones. Matt Jones was a quarterback.
Wait, I thought Matt Jones was a running back.
Was. It's a different Matt Jones.
First Matt Jones.
Oh, okay. I was
different Matt Jones to Washington. No, he was a quarterback who transitioned to receiver, and he was such a big, fast player. But also, he had a cocaine problem. This is not even this comp is out of control.
It's slander. It's truly slander.
So Cincinnati at 5, they're going to probably take Sewell, but if they were to take Pitts, I would love that landing spot. We said the ones that we wouldn't like. I mean, Miami at 6 is kind of interesting now that they have both Fuller and Parker, and they still have Pat's favorite tight end.
And they don't have a tight end.
They're not drafting Pitts.
I wouldn't really love Miami. I wouldn't love Detroit at 7 either. I mean, the targets.
Oh yeah, that'd be terrible with Hawkins in there.
Yeah, and then
the Panthers at 8 would be that'd be kind of disappointing because that means they don't get a quarterback. That's the one. Don't draft him at 8. Draft a quarterback.
I wouldn't like that. Denver has Fant. I wouldn't expect that. People have talked about him to Dallas and just make this a ridiculous because they already have so many receivers. Again, I'd
be into it.
You would?
That's where he probably doesn't have a good rookie year.
I would love that for DFS, and I would hate it for drafting in season long and stuff.
But remember why we like pass catchers, because pass catchers improve the offense. It's not like a running back where it's oh no, now they're going to split the pie.
I
Pitts
generally
will make this
agree with
offense
that.
better.
But at some point, you can't have 5 guys that all involved in the offense unless they're going just absolutely.
Right. There's a limit and there's price. I thought that with Blake Jarwin because that's a team that uses a lot of 11 personnel and usually sticks to a tight end.
You were right.
And even after Jarwin went down,
transferred to Schultz.
Schultz, yes, because he ran a ton of routes, and maybe Pitts would be that guy. The problem is he would be expensive in that offense, in my opinion. That's a place where
you're right.
Wouldn't see the type of ceiling that I'd want to pay for him. I want to think he's a good value too. Is sort of it.
You're 100% right. Yeah. There would be a lot of hype.
Yeah. No, I'm with people. I would not like the Dolphins, and a lot of these teams in the top already have established tight ends too.
They do. Yeah.
Well, I think the awful landing spots, the Giants.
Yeah, well, they're happy with Ingram, right? Theoretically.
Well, I believe Ingram is a free agent after the year.
After, yeah.
So if
Philly
they move
12?
on,
what if he fell all the way to 12? Philly's trying to get rid of Ertz. They have Goddard. What if they went back to 2 tight ends with Goddard and Pitts?
Goddard just the rest of his life, like never breaking out.
Well, here Sam's got it. The dream is the Chargers at 13.
Yeah, the Chargers at 13 would be.
He won't last that long.
What about Parham, bro?
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Adam's just texted me. I've been fired.
Yeah, I can already wait for Adam saying that Kyle Pitts can't hold Donald Parham's jockstrap or something along those lines.
Yeah, the PSM has come in poorly on Pitts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kyle Pitts is going to break the PSM model.
I think he just did today as pro day. A lot of measurements.
Actually, looking through this, there's not a lot of landing spots that I like here. I mean, unless he goes forward to like now.
I like Falcons and Bengals, right?
Falcons is like probably one of the better ones. Pat, I haven't talked into that.
The Bengals I would like, but they need offensive line.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like the Panthers, where it's like, well, yeah, they certainly could use Pitts, but what are you foregoing?
The hang on, bad here saying isn't Pitts pretty well projected to go top 10 at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't think that, you can probably get an under on a draft pick market pretty easily. I'm curious what it is.
Yeah.
There was a question.
What was the question, Pat?
Sam had asked, what quarterback would you most prefer in Carolina? Have you guys looked at all into this quarterback class?
No.
It's a really fun quarterback class.
Yeah, I've looked at it a little bit. Why do people hate Fields? The dude is fast, and like, does no one know that the NFL's changed? I'm really confused about the Fields hate.
I'm psyched about Fields. I think he's going to be really, really fun.
Dude, that clip where he runs down, is it Sermon or one of their running backs? I saw that and I was like, wow, I didn't realize he was that good of an athlete.
He's like, he ran a 4.45 or something?
Yeah, and then he went out and ran a 4.45 right after. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, he's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about about Fields. I just think like he likes to throw deep. He hangs in the pocket for probably too long and takes sacks, but he also runs a lot. So it's like he's Deshaun Watson, and that's who everyone comps him to. But he's probably a little bit more athletic, and he might have a better arm. He's gonna be. He's gonna be
doing the thing that douche used to always say that people would do. Like they would say it's Jay Cutler, but without the mistakes. Like now you made a perfect quarterback.
Yeah,
he's Deshaun Watson, but he's better and also better arm, and he's more athletic.
And
I think he legitimately. So go ahead. What was that, Pete?
I said, and also an upstanding citizen.
No.
No, but I think he's got an incredibly high ceiling. I'm really excited about Fields. Obviously, with these rookies, they could all fall flat on their face. But
yeah,
I don't understand why people are moving him down.
People are talking about him a lot lower. I actually still. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe Kyle Shannon's playing games. Whatever. If they take Mac Jones, I will be shocked. Shanahan has been sharp for the last couple of years. He seemed aware. The 49ers have seemed pretty aware of what's going on in the NFL. To take a statue quarterback because he's, sort of a system fit at number 3 when you can tweak a system. Shanahan is a smart enough coach to tweak a system to fit a player. Like, I honestly think there was so much made of him going to the Mac Jones Pro Day over Fields, which I guess Fields has a second one. Maybe they'll go to Fields' second one. I don't know. But
they traded up before both pro days. So who gives a shit which pro day they went to? Right? They made the decision. I know, but they made the decision. We have a quarterback.
Oh,
we're trading up for a quarterback. Yeah. We know who he is. We're taking him. They make that decision. They don't need a pro day at that point.
That's sort of what I'm thinking. And my thought also is like, if he goes to Fields' pro day, he's sort of tipping his hand that he doesn't want Fields to go 2. Because I'm not so sold that Zach Wilson's a lock at 2. Fields was always 2. This happens every year. All this misdirection and everything. It would not shock me if Fields still goes 2, which is what we thought for a really, really long time. I think Shanahan wants Fields, or maybe, and doesn't want to tip his hand where he won't get him at 2. And they're comfortable still taking Wilson at 3. That's why they traded up. But I don't see how they would pay what they paid to get into the top 3 to not take one of those 3 guys. Or Lance. Lance at least has some upside. Yeah, he's at least a player. But also, I just went on to DraftKings to try to find pick over-unders.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it for individual players, but first non-quarterback to be drafted, Kyle Pitts is the odds-on favorite, plus 125. And then it's Sewell, and then it's Chase. So Pitts is, whatever his draft pick over-under is, it's low.
Because when I look, Sewell has been going like top 5 in mock drafts.
Yeah, so apparently Pitts is expected to go 4, right? I mean, that's sort of what that's saying. 4 to Atlanta, Sewell goes 5 to Cincinnati.
Yeah. So he's going top 10.
Yeah, and when you look at the fits, it does really seem like 4 or 5 is there. Great Pitts, Patriots.com. I should change my website.
If they draft Pitts after signing Jonathan Hunter Henry, you do have to change it.
It would be so absurd. What other pro days have been on your radar, Pat, that got you excited?
Well, Bateman's tomorrow.
Okay.
Bateman's gonna be real exciting.
What's your target 40?
I mean, with Bateman, I think as long as he runs like 4.5 something, it's fine. If he runs in the 4.4s, it's awesome because then he has a shot to be a first-round pick. But I think he's a second-round pick even if he doesn't. If he runs like a 4.6 something, that would be worrying. Again, with these wide receivers, I care about it because of the draft position mostly. It generally gets like fully baked into the draft position, but the draft position matters. So if he runs like if he runs what Chase ran, like 4.38, holy shit.
Is he sneaking into the first round of mock drafts?
He's generally like in some, right? In late first.
I'm looking at the list now that has him 8. I think he's he's a guy that one of the trade offers I was considering was getting back into the 112. And my concern is that if I do that in a non-super flex, that Bateman's gone and Moore's gone. And then I'm in this like Terrace Marshall, tier. And everything I've seen has had those guys at like in the top 10. Like you wouldn't get them at 12. I feel like there's a pretty big drop actually after Bateman and Moore. Well, that's where like people keep ranking Kadarius Toney and everyone says he sucks, right?
I'm not into Toney at all, but you meant NFL first round, right, Pete?
That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got late first potential, but if he runs sub 4.4, I think will definitely go first. If he runs in the 4.4s, pretty good shot.
How about Bateman to the Packers?
Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice.
That seems like
that sounds pretty fun.
He's like a true number 1 alpha wide receiver.
Oh god, that sounds a lot of fun. They've been getting so much flack for not taking a receiver last year. If they at 29 took Bateman, wheels up, boys. Wheels up.
Yeah. Well, one reason I was thinking that you should trade down, Ben, is because Bateman, if he does go late first, he's going to end up in one of those situations potentially where people get really excited. And now he might be out of your grasp where, in the spots of the draft where you thought you might get him. So, get some Bateman exposure while you can lock it up isn't the worst thing.
We got Nick pivoting us over to running backs here. How do you guys rank the RBs? I've started seeing people ranking Williams over Etienne, which seems crazy to me. What do you guys think?
Totally leaving Pat for this.
I have the 3 running backs pretty close. I think that, as I look at them, I'm like, well, Etienne is really exciting. He's super explosive. But I'm worried about where he lands because if he ends up with like a donkey staff, they could totally ruin him. If they're like, we need you to keep us on schedule, keeping us on schedule. You're going for the big play. Well, it's like, well, that's the whole purpose of this player. Don't draft him if you don't want him constantly trying to hit the big play. He could end up being CJ Spiller. So you're a little bit worried about that. With Harris,
are you scouting the helmet?
Yeah, Clemson, man. With Harris, it's a little bit like this is also scouting the helmet. He could end up being Eddie Lacy. So you're like, yeah, he could be. People comp him to Matt Forte.
Harris does not make it move for me. I'm sorry. Like similar to what you're saying, he just seems like a plotter. I don't know.
He's slow. So when you look at yards per route run, he's like okay as a pass catcher, but the tape people really like him as a pass catcher. And so that's going to be a key.
So like a
I
Josh
always fade
Jacobs
that.
vibe kind of thing?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But he gets comped to like sort of like Le'Veon Bell, but not, Le'Veon Bell has that like otherworldly patience that
Oh my God, he had
he won't have.
30 touchdowns last year. He had 26 rushing touchdowns last year, and he caught 43 balls. Those are really high numbers.
Yeah, he's interesting, but he's a big back who doesn't have breakaway speed. So it's like,
Yeah, I'm totally. If he can't, his receiving is totally the important part. I'm totally pigeonholing him into this lack of upside type of player.
I wouldn't. He can catch.
Okay.
Even the yards per out run, to me they're like you could go. It's like you could go either way type of profile. But the tape likes him,
but some teams just don't even throw to that kind of back in today's NFL.
That's right. Yeah. So the landing spot matters. Like I wonder if he goes to like the Jets or something, if they just kind of pigeonhole him and they don't pass to him a lot.
Like the thing with Jacobs, everyone wants to say he's good. Okay, he's not terrible, but the issue is that they don't use him on third downs. They never have. Mm-hmm. And they also have had other good pass catching backs. They've liked to use Jalen Richard and previously DeAndre Washington. They like using those guys in that spot. You can't make them use Josh Jacobs in the passing game any more than they were. Like it is what it is, And at that point, he's overvalued. Their ceiling issues is everything we said about J.K. Dobbins earlier. So that's the concern with Harris, is that he goes to a team that doesn't see him as that.
Yeah, they're just going to
or doesn't see him as an every down back, essentially. And so few teams do in today's NFL see any back as that.
Yeah. And then Javonte Williams looks like, he could end up being like kind of a David Montgomery type. He's like very, very elusive.
Is that a good comp?
I know.
It's not. I didn't mean it as a good comp.
Okay, I saw it used as a good comp the other day.
But that is kind of like the style of runner he is. I think he's going to make a lot of guys miss, but he also does not have breakaway speed. So, I mean, not at the NFL level. So he's not slow, but he's definitely not like, his speed is not ideal. So he could become a frustrating guy.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong, true or false. We could look back on this class and be like, this is one of the worst running back classes. Like, if these three guys miss, maybe there's some interesting ones later, but these are the three best ones. And you're basically saying one could be a CJ Spiller type home run hitter that if he doesn't hit enough, we're all disappointed in. The other two don't have breakaway speed. They could just be plotters more or less. Like that happens. We do this sometimes in Dynasty. We're like, these are the best backs in the class. They were the best backs in college football, but maybe they're not that great at the NFL level. Like, we could look back and be like, wow, there was nobody good in this class at running back.
I think that's possible because after that, you've got like Michael Carter, who's a pretty solid prospect, but he profiles as maybe you get like a Giovanni Bernard rookie year out of him. But he was with Javonte Williams. He's like a passing back primarily. He's kind of undersized. So he's not someone who I think is going to come in like an Antonio Gibson and be like, oh man, we didn't even see him coming, and now he's an awesome running back. Like, he's not that guy, I don't think. And then you've got Kenneth Gainwell, who's pretty interesting, but also kind of undersized. And he's explosive enough to where maybe he could really surprise us if he lands on the right team. But like, maybe he could be kind of like a Kenyon Drake type of dude. But I also don't think he's going to save the class if these top three guys all don't hit. And they're all like in a range where you could see them all busting. They're not, none of them are just kind of like, high ceiling, high floor combo.
Yeah. All I heard when you were describing those guys is like someone in drafts is going to like them more than I do.
Yeah.
It's just like hard to envision me ever having any of those guys.
That's how I felt too. I'm like, I'm not going to have these guys on really any teams. I mean, it's kind of like, what's the class that had, I hate to bring up Rojo, Pat, but like like as a bust, but like Rojo, it had Sonny Michel, it had Rashad Penny. Was Royce Freeman in that class? Yeah, Royce Freeman. Like, there was a lot of guys, and a lot of those guys had better profiles than this, but like sometimes it just doesn't pan out.
Chubb was in that class, right?
Chubb was, and Barkley was. I'm pulling up these old rookie drafts. So they were good, but yeah, Geis, which, off the field stuff too, and injuries, but Penny, Penny, Michelle, and Royce Freeman, and arguably Ronald Jones. Maybe, I think Pat might make.
It hasn't been awesome.
It hasn't been awesome. But those other guys have not been the prospects we thought.
Think about the friends we've made along the way, though.
Yeah, well, that has been. I think, I'm a sucker for the running backs with speed. I am.
Yeah.
And so I think I'll own some ETN.
Yeah, that's a fun one. ETN's a fun one to have a little bit of. And then the receivers are so fun in this class. Just draft receivers.
Evergreen statement.
The receivers are genuinely really fun in this class, and that's where the depth is. There's actually depth at tight end. I haven't dove into the tight end class as much as the other positions yet, but I've done it enough to realize that there is some interesting depth behind Pitts. And then the wide receivers, they go deep this year. Not as deep as last year, but they go deep. There's like a lot of guys who could, if they land in the right spots, could be really, 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 really interesting.
Who's
like Elijah Moore.
Who's the next tight end I was going to ask? That Freiermuth? How do you say
Yeah,
his name?
Pat Freiermuth, yeah.
He's pretty interesting. I'm
pretty sure that's wrong, but I don't know what's right.
I would hope so.
Yeah. But there's a couple other guys. It's like 4 or 5 deep that are like all kind of interesting. So it's a pretty interesting tight end class. Going to hopefully reload the position.
Hassan straight up said it's Kyle Pitts and no one else.
Hassan coming in hot.
Not Pat, not again.
Well, Ingram was in this class, Hassan. The class that you're saying was terrible, which those guys busted. But I agree with Ben. I think OJ Howard, like we run that back, he's probably a lot better than he's turned out to be.
I think that too. Big time.
Hassan, we gotta get you on one of these weeks. I don't know your schedule. We need your hot fire.
I want to know what
takes.
Random country Hassan is mad at now.
Yeah.
Who do you hate? He alienated all of our Australian ship chasing listeners. He just went ham.
Yeah, he hates Australians for some reason. But by the way, Javonte Williams ran a 4.58, so it's kind of like the Josh Jacobs who ran a 4.6. People are citing Kamara's 4.56, but I don't think he's that guy.
Son's still taking jabs at Australia there. All right, guys. I think maybe next week it might be time to start drafting. Might be time to start mixing in some.
We said that last week, didn't we?
Well, I know, but then
I want to get a dynasty startup going with you guys.
Oh yeah, let's start. Let's go take the pulse in the Discord with our ship chasing fellas here and see if we can maybe get a startup draft going.
That was very non-committal.
What are you talking about?
We're taking the pulse. Whose pulse are we taking? I want to do the draft with the two of you.
Yeah.
No, I know, but I thought we want to do the draft with other ship chasers. We can co-manage a team.
Oh, let's play.
Oh, I just want to do like an FFPC best ball.
Yeah, I want to play donkeys.
You don't think these guys want to come play with us?
They do, but they're gonna have all the same targets as us. I'm in enough leagues with good players. I want to play.
This is a dynasty league. We're gonna have to be like we're gonna be sniping each other for 10 years.
Let the record show. Peter wanted to draft with you guys, and these elitists over here wanted to build a wall and keep you out just for a marginal amount of EV.
Build a wall. Come on.
I don't have a ton of dynasty leagues. They're all with industry people. They're all. It is frustrating to play dynasty with people who play like you. I'm excited about the concept of playing with a bunch of non-ship chasers.
All right, yeah. Screw off. I guess we can't play with you. Jesus, wow. Look at that. Fine. Well, we're going to figure out ways to draft. You do not have to worry about that. And we are going to go hang out in the Discord. Pat sent me like 19 Stefan Diggs images, and we need to figure out which one of them are going to become emojis.
We needed some more emojis for the Discord, and I Googled AJ Brown. I Googled Ronald Jones. I Googled Josh Allen. I Googled all these people. Stefan Diggs was like 18 emojis, all Stefan Diggs. He's the GOAT of expressions. He's so expressive.
Yes. I also like the one you sent over for bad internet. It would be a good one to add. If you guys missed last week, we did launch that. If you become a member on the YouTube channel, it gives you access to the ship chasing channel in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. Those links are down below.
I love these comments.
People now lobbying to get in here. Yeah.
I could draft the Donkey Brain team. We aren't sharp, Gretch.
You know what? You forced our listeners into like debasing themselves. Just
so much respect for the chat. That's Lauren says it right. We have too much respect for you guys.
We do. But yes, trust me, plenty of drafts on the horizon. All without you if Gretsch gets his way. Real quick before we go, Ben, give the people your quick. You had a Substack post out about some Omni things. Why don't you give people a little taste of what's been going on in the Omni world?
My league's been keeping up with it. Those guys are like giving me as many updates as I'm giving the people. But we had the UCL round of 16. We're down to 8 there. So the top 8 in every sport get points. So those teams have all gotten points. The big upset was Porto over Juventus. And I looked at like the ADP and everything on the Substack. And Porto was undrafted in some leagues, but they're in the money now. And then obviously college basketball, we're down to the Final Four. So those teams have all hit the 30-point Omni fantasy point plateau. UCLA was undrafted in almost every league. So that's another team that's stealing points from the field when a team that no one drafts gets to that level. And it happens more in sports like college basketball. It doesn't happen a lot in other sports, but it's a deep pool of teams and a wild tournament, obviously. So we usually see 1 or 2 teams steal some points in college basketball. And we got that actually. All 3 of the Pac-12 teams were not heavily drafted, and they all made the Elite 8, the Oregon State, USC, and UCLA. But then we have, 3 pretty highly drafted teams rounding out the Final Four in Gonzaga and Baylor and Houston. Do not. Exactly. And then we have a really good calendar coming up. We had the quarterfinals for Champions League is next Tuesday and Wednesday, I think. The Final Four is this weekend. And then the following week, starting on Thursday, is the Masters. So we get Saturday and Monday is the Champions League. Tuesday, Wednesday Saturday, Monday is college basketball. Tuesday, Wednesday is Champions League. Thursday through Sunday is the Masters. We get like 8 days in 9 where we're going to have some pretty big Omnifantasy stuff coming up in the next week. So that's pretty fun.
And you said you're going to be live blogging that around the clock?
Right.
On the Substack, a 24-hour. Okay.
Yeah.
3 a.m.
The 3 a.m. block, especially.
All right, guys. Well, go ahead, Pat.
Well, yeah, I just think some of this stuff's interesting with the Omnifantasy because I haven't played before, and one of the things that kind of hit me is that what Ben's talking about with the team stealing points, because I was like, oh, the NCAA, that basketball tournament's crazy. There's going to be lots of chaos. That's a good team to flex because we always were talking about which sports to try to flex. But it seems obvious in retrospect, but you got to pick sports where you're not going to have a ton of teams that don't even get drafted who are going to be taking all those points.
Yeah.
So it's you don't want too much chaos. You want just the right amount of chaos.
That was a point I made in one of my write-ups that there's so many teams that can do it in college basketball. Identifying the correct team is actually really challenging. And so the expected value of any one of those flex picks, we talked about this, I think in college basketball is actually lower, even though there are teams that come out of nowhere. You can flex all the college basketball teams you want, but you really got to hit it. There's a lot of other teams that were interesting that didn't do well. I think 11 of the top 15 teams in average draft position that we pulled got 0 points in college basketball. You're not going to see that probably in any other sport where that many of the top teams, only 4 made the final 8 out of the top 15 picked teams. And then there were 3 that were undrafted in a lot of leagues, and Arkansas was 16th. They were late. They were one of the later teams, and they made the final 8, but then they lost. They only got 20. So it is tough to find those teams, definitely.
Then the other thing that occurred to me is I was reading your Substack article where you're pointing out with Champions League is kind of unique in that they're always reseeding and it's random or whatever. So you don't know who's going to be playing who. So that made me feel getting the top pick in that isn't necessarily as valuable as other sports, because then you could end up getting them matched up against another really, really good team. And so, if you get a couple stabs at the Champions League with all still pretty good teams, there's some chaos there where they just might get good draws. And so you're banking on that volatility.
Especially this first draw. So we draft it when there's 16, and then it gets to 8, and then it draws again. And this is where there's definitely some volatility. Chelsea's the one that was the big winner. They drew Porto, who had the upset, and now they look like really good bets to go to the quarters. Once you get to the quarters, it's kind of like everyone's good. Chelsea's not going to draw Porto in the quarter. Someone's going to advance. Right. The semis, when there's 4 teams left. But we're in the quarters now. There's enough options that someone's going to get a good draw. And yeah, that did happen. Exactly what you said. Bayern Munich and Man City were like neck and neck when we were drafting in odds. And Man City drew Borussia Dortmund or whatever. They're one of the longer shots now. They're basically the second long shot behind Porto. And so Man City's in a great spot because they drew that and they were a favorite. It worked out for them. Bayern, unfortunately, drew Paris Saint-Germain, which is previously was another one of the favorites. Now PSG's fallen to 5th in odds out of the top 8 teams because they're facing Bayern, who's like one of the top 2 teams. But yeah, one of those teams is going to lose now here in the quarterfinals, and it could be Bayern Munich because they are facing a really good Paris Saint-Germain team. But even if it's Paris Saint-Germain, they were a top 3 or top 4 option when we were drafting. Yeah, especially after their first leg, they won really big in their first leg against Barcelona. So anyway, yeah, I mean it's wild. It's wild that those 2 teams are matched up in the quarters. You don't see that in other sports.
Yeah, I'm very much like a hands-on learner, So those like types of lessons like didn't click for me until you draft some teams and then you see kind of how it starts to shake out.
Yeah. It's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one for sure. Good lesson.
A good life lesson. That's what Omnifantasy is all about. We all, I came into Omnifantasy a boy and I left a man.
Thanks for tying this all together.
Yeah.
We're like a month in. Wait till we get a whole year in.
Ooh.
Hey, I do have it. I'm an Omni vet. Okay.
That's right.
I did a draft and then the sports world.
Right. You experienced the worst of Omnifantasy.
Yeah. I do. No, I do feel like a veteran, and yet I actually don't know how anything plays out because we didn't have it. So, okay. We are going to wrap things up. We are going to go hang out in the Discord. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Please subscribe on iTunes if you haven't yet, for Ben Gretsch, for Pat Carrain, for these heels that don't want to draft with you. I'm the man of the people, Peter Overzet. We'll see you guys next time.